Authorities have detained more than 100 people after demonstrations calling for a new presidential elections. Belarus used water cannons. Police used water cannons to break up Sunday's crowd. The country has been rocked by protests and strikes since the August 9th vote. Incumbent President Alexander Lukashenko was declared the winner, but opponents say the vote was rigged. On Saturday, Lukashenko met with jailed opposition leaders. Joining us now is Vladimir Golstein. He's the Department Chair of Slavic Studies at Brown University. Vladimir, thanks so much for joining us. State media says this meeting between the president and opposition leaders in jail allowed Lukashenko to discuss constitutional reforms. The opposition and even Pavel Latushko, a former Belarusian ambassador to France, say that Lukashenko did so because he's weak. What are your thoughts?
Well, you know, on many levels, Lukashenko is weak. On other levels, he is strong. There is a serious support of him. It's absolutely clear within the country. Not within big cities, not among the young, but he has support. However, the support is, kind of dwindling, and he understands, opposition is also strong. First, he could have thought he'll dismiss them, he'll arrest them. Now he realizes that he has to enter the dialogue, and he has to sort of come up with a, way of transitioning the power. Obviously, he's been in power for so long that there is enough anger at him. So this is a step in the right direction. Opposition, of course, probably wouldn't, agree with it. They want his immediate kind of resignation. But I think it's an interesting move that it shows that he is not as stubborn and not as self-righteous as he's been all these years. But I would add that there was certain reason for his self-righteousness, because his economic model was working for majority of Belarusians. So majority of Belarusians didn't lose their jobs due to neoliberal reforms, as many other places did in Eastern Europe. So, but he became a little bit too arrogant and self-righteous and refused to talk and thought that, he can get away with anything.
Lukasenko's main rival, Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, is in exile in Lithuania. She said in response to the meeting, you can't have dialogue in a jail. Is she right? Should Lukashenko release the opposition and then talk to them?
Well, he definitely has to do something. But, I would say that Tikhanovskaya is not a particularly kind of viable candidate. She just was catapulted in the limelight because of her husband. She is not qualified to judge economic situation. She just basically ran away to Lithuania and very frequently just more or less repeats neoliberal EU dogma, bringing, economy in sync with the way they do things in Lithuania and Poland. But we know that these changes, economic changes, are very painful for the society. Furthermore, another aspect of her program is to bring, Belarus into EU and NATO, further destabilizing the situation. So, of course, Lukashenko has to talk to everyone, and he has to come up with a very viable candidate who will consider economic interest of Belarus, political interest, and then somehow kind of will be less polarizing figure than Lukashenko himself, who obviously kind of gets people very, very angry by the number of mistakes he's made.
Lithuania, Poland recalling their ambassadors, a number of Western countries now following suit. In Ukraine, we saw a proxy battle between Russia and the West, each with an agenda, neither without flaws. Thousands of lives were lost there and continue to do so. What direction do you expect things to go in Belarus as we're watching effectively this clash of larger powers?
Well, I would like to stress that both Poland and Lithuania are fully embrace this neoliberal economics shock doctrine, which sent a lot of poor Poles and a lot of poor Lithuanians abroad because they lost their jobs. And now, in comparison with Ukraine 2014, at that time people kind of believed more in the European model. Now, for example, many countries from Belarus to Russia, they have Chinese example with much more active government involved, with a number of socialist measures involved. So I think Belarusians kind of understand it. So they do not need to follow neither Polish nor Lithuanian example. But these guys are very, very kind of active there, because for them, they have to deal with their own population. They want to convince their population that EU and European way is the only way. While a lot of older generation, you know, in Lithuania, and they're not happy. Their income is low, so, you know, I understand why they're trying to be that active, but Belarus has to find its own way, and I think if alliance or kind of at least learning or interacting with examples from China, from, you know, certain things from Russia, are much more kind of promising, both economically and also promising from foreign policy question of stability. That's another dimension which all involved countries want.